welcome to episode 5 of Speckled Red Knits, the podcast. My name is Juliana. I'm a knitter from Cleveland, Ohio. I also dabble in other crafts like sewing a little bit. And this is a podcast that's mostly just about knitting. I'm so happy to have you here again for episode 5. I think we finally reached 1,000 subscribers, which is crazy. Thank you to everyone that subscribes. It truly blows me away that so many people have found the podcast so far and that you keep coming back for another episode. It's really neat getting to kind of create like a little knitting community on YouTube. And it's nice to have people to ask questions too when I'm dealing with knitting woes. Normally I would say let's get into some knitting, but I wanted to do a couple of announcements before we get started because I know that not everyone watches until the very end. I just want everyone to be able to hear this. So last week we did a giveaway, and the giveaway was for this skein of Gauge Dye Works yarn. It was their June club color, and it's a skein that is like, it's a gradient, and it has a little bit of color work at the top. And everything you need, all of the yarn is within this skein. So like the colorwork yarn is in here to knit these socks. I believe I know who won. So I will contact them and send them the pattern that goes with this too. But the winner is V Shaw 7, Vicky. She commented in our Ravelry thread, which is where we're doing giveaways now. It's a little bit easier because I can reach out to you on Ravelry to let you know that you won instead of waiting for you to find me on Instagram. And the topic for this giveaway was just to comment on what you would like to see in a knit along. And Vicky commented that she would like to see a sweater knit along, which is something I definitely would love to do with you all. And that brings me to my second point, is that we are going to do a knit along, and it's not going to be a sweater knit along this time, but it will be a knit along, and the theme of it is the small things. So we're going to do a knit along of just like little smaller items, accessories like mittens, hats, maybe like a cowl, socks. I think a lot of people posted that they wanted to do like a hat, something like that, something small in the Ravelry group. And I really like this idea for this time of the year because I think it would be so nice to knit something right now, something small for someone else and put it away to have for Christmas. I have this really bad habit of biting off more than I can chew for knitting gifts. Well, it's not like biting off more than I can chew. The issue is that I want to knit people things for Christmas, but I also, it's like prime knitting time, and I just want to knit things for me. And then I get annoyed when it's December and I can't knit a sweater for myself because I have to knit things for other people. And then I don't like knitting in the winter. So the goal of this knit along is to just knit something small. I intend to knit something small and put it away to give for a gift. You can do whatever you want with it, but that's kind of my intention behind the knit along. The knit along is going to start on October 1st and it's going to end on November 1st. So what's nice about this, I think, is that you'll get to knit something, and if you are going to give it as a gift, you can knit it and put it away. And then it'll be November, and you still have plenty of time before Christmas to knit something for someone else or knit something for yourself. And you're not like up against the gun to knit that. So I will be starting a Ravelry page for the knit along. If you want to be entered, all you have to do is in the Ravelry thread, just take a picture of whatever you knit. And put it in there, maybe tell us something about it if you're going to keep it for yourself or give it as a gift. I think I'll also make another thread of some pattern ideas. There are a lot of free patterns out there for like smaller things like this, which is another reason why I wanted to do this one as our first knit along, because it's accessible. Lots of free patterns are available for hats and socks, and a lot of these projects also only use one skein, which is nice. So you can check on Instagram, and I'll probably put a link on Instagram to the Ravelry page. I'll put that on YouTube too. But yes, so just to be entered in the knit along, there'll be a giveaway associated with it. I just haven't decided on what the prize will be yet. But you can enter as many times as you want. Just make a separate post in the Ravelry thread and put a picture up there. So again, that starts October 1st and it will end on November 1st. The last announcement is that I will be having a shop update on October 3rd. And if you tuned into the last podcast, this little collection of bags I did is inspired by just kind of like late summer in the garden. I think it's so nice how late summer is kind of when the garden is most abundant. And all these prints kind of reminded me of like an English garden. So October 3rd, there will be a shop update at 5 p.m. Eastern time. There will also be some Halloween bags in there, but I don't have those here to show you. I love Halloween, so of course I'm doing some Halloween bags, but it'll be a limited selection of the Halloween bags, so if you want one, that'll probably be the only time I do them. And I'll probably put in a clip of the Halloween prints, but for right now, let me show you the prints from the previous collection that will be in the shop update. So this one is super cute. They're these little bumblebees. I don't know, I kind of have a thing for bumblebees. All of my school mascots were bees. My elementary school, my high school, and my college. We were all bees. Not honeybees, like angry bees. But these aren't angry bees. Look how cute they are. This other one is super cute too. Just these lovely little flowers. My tags on all of them. This is like one of my favorite colors, this like pale pink. And last but not least, because I said these all reminded me of an English garden, here's a little London print for everyone. The previous two bags I showed, those were my medium size. So those are good for socks. This is a large size though, so you can kind of, here, let me grab one and I'll show it to you for comparison. So here's a large bag, here's a medium bag. But yeah, this one just has some really cute little motifs on it. I have been to London once, and it is as cute as this bag. So I will put a little list of all the important dates to remember in the comments below. And if you're the winner of the sock yarn, I will probably send you a message on Ravelry, but if you see this before I remembered to do that, you can send me a message too and I'll get that yarn out to you. Alright, now that announcements are over, let's get into some knitting. So my only finished object this week is this pair of socks. I think I've shown these socks on here before. No, I definitely have. But I finished this pair of socks. Look how cute they are. This is a self-striping sock yarn. It is by Mustache Yarns, not Mustache Yarns. That's what I always want to say. And this was a colorway that was inspired by, I think, the Smoky Mountains. It was inspired by some mountains, and I think smoke was involved in the name. But I want to say the yarn was available probably in August. And I had seen the yarn before. I think she does clubs, and this was like one of the club colors, but she opened it up for people to be able to purchase it regularly, and I grabbed a skein of it. I'm sure I've talked about this before, how she splits the skeins into two so that you get like two skeins that are exactly the same, and so you can get two socks that are exactly the same. So like the color repeats start at the same place on both skeins. The color repeat on these is really long. So it starts with this gray up here, and you don't get to that gray again until down here. So it's like, I want to say it's like 8 colors. That's the repeat. So I did the toes and heels, and I think this is just a Madeline Tosh, like a unicorn tail and a sock yarn, this nice green. So I was finishing these, and the ball looked very small, but I know that I've done socks or heels and toes in one of the Madeline Tosh unicorn tails before, and I'm like, no, it'll be fine. It wasn't. I had to do this teeny tiny bit of another color for, like, I don't know if you can see it, for just this little bit of the heel. But you know what? I'm not that precious about it, and I think it's cute. So I'm excited to have another pair of socks in my sock box, which I know is a thing. My sock box is just my sock drawer. So these are going to go in there, and they're going to keep me nice and cozy. I really wish that more people sold 50-gram skeins of yarn, because I often find myself like, because when I normally buy like fingering weight yarn, I buy singles to knit shawls with, and like you can't really knit socks with singles. So I have a lot of leftovers that I could use for heels and toes, but it's not the right, type of fingering weight yarn. And I wish people sold more 50-gram skeins, because I feel like that's like the perfect amount to be able to get heels and toes out of it, and like still have some left over and not be like worried about it. Because a mini skein is like not quite enough. Like this is a mini skein. And it's like just barely enough. So you definitely don't have enough to do like cuffs in it. So if you're a yarn dyer out there, I know Hugh Loco does it, and I think that's great. She does the 50-gram skeins. So if you're a yarn dyer, hit me up, because I would like to buy some 50-gram skeins for my heels and toes, because I don't have anything to use for them. But anyway, this is my only finished object, and I like them a lot. So I have a lot of like almost finished objects, but not quite finished objects. So if you remember back to episode 1, I showed you this bad boy. This is my my Birkin sweater by Caitlin Hunter. And I started this like just as kind of like a quarantine project, because I thought I was going to have a lot of free time during quarantine, because at the time I had a different job, and I was starting a part-time job just for like to pick up extra hours when I needed to. And my full-time job I was laid off of. And so I thought I was going to have all this time during quarantine to knit, but then I forgot that I have this part-time job I can just work full-time at now. So I had always wanted to knit this sweater, and I thought that quarantine would be a good time to do it. And I actually did knit a lot of this during quarantine. Not because I wasn't working, but because there was nothing to do. There was nowhere to go, nothing to see or do. So this is knit in I think it's Jamison's and Smith. I always get the two confused. There are two that are very similar, the Shetland wool. And I should make a Ravelry page, so that, because all the colors are like numbers, so if I told you the colors, you probably wouldn't remember that, like, this is 479. This, you're probably looking at this and you're like, it doesn't look that different from the first time you showed it. And you're probably right. I think I was done with about half of the body when I showed this to you. So since then, I have knit the whole body. And all I'm doing now is, you can kind of see on this side that it is a split hem. So I split for the hem, and I did the ribbing back here. And I did, for the first time ever, a tubular bind off. And here's the thing, is that I think a tubular bind off looks really nice in superwash wool, but because this is like woolly wool, it just kind of like the yarn doesn't like flow smoothly through the tubular bind off. So I've never done a tubular bind off, and if you haven't done it either, it does take a lot longer, and you use a tapestry needle, and there's quite a bit of like, it's kind of like a sewn bind off, and it gives you like, it does look, the edge does look pretty nice if you can kind of see the edge there. It's kind of rounded. Again, I think this looks a lot nicer on superwash yarns just because you notice it more. But I think it still looks nice on this. So I'm going to do that again on the other half of the split hem. It's kind of not quite like a high and low hem. So I think this is about 2.5 inches, this back little bit of ribbing, and then I think the front bit of ribbing is only like 1 inch. What else do I have to say about the body? So the way that you knit the body is that, so I did the color work in a size 4 needle. I think the body is supposed to be done on a size 3. So then most people do this. They go up a needle size when they do color work. So that's what I did for the color work. And then I went back down to the size 3, which should be the same gauge. And so you knit in a size 3 for a little bit, and then you go up to a size 4, and then I think you go up to a size 5 right at the bottom. And I don't know if you can really see it on here because it's not blocked, but it kind of gives like this A-line shape. So it gives you some shaping, so it kind of like floats away from your body without having to do like increases or anything, because you're getting like bigger stitches just because you're changing needle sizes, which is actually pretty cool. I haven't knit another pattern that does it. I didn't notice that it changed the gauge that much. I mean, I guess like when I'm looking at like this up here where it is a size 3, and then down here where it's a size 5, it's like, it's a little bit lighter, but because this is such a woolly yarn, I think that when I block it, it's just gonna all kind of like, you know, like melt together. So yeah, so I just need to do this front little bit of ribbing, and then I will pick up the sleeves, and I believe they are 3/4 length sleeves, so like they'll only go to like about here, so they're not full length sleeves, and I think I'm getting like a pretty good amount of the sleeve up here. So really, the sleeve shouldn't be that long when I do knit them, but I'm really excited to finish this. It had just kind of been languishing because it's so hot, and this is like really woolly, and I'd started it in like March, April when it was still pretty cool out. So I don't know, I didn't want to knit a woolly sweater in the summer. So now that it's finally cooling off, it was cooling off. It was like sweater weather last week, and now it's 85 again. But hopefully it'll cool off, and I will have this finished, and I'll get to wear it. I think this is gonna block out so nicely the color work. That's a cool thing about doing color work, is it looks so much better after you block it. So I'm excited to see what it looks like. I'm just so excited to have this sweater. This has been like something I wanted to knit before, and I didn't, because there are some places you can kind of see like these middle rows where you have to carry 3 yarns at once, and I'm not gonna lie, it's not difficult, it's just like you have to think about it. Like you really have to just like sit down, and I mean, I'm not a skilled color work knitter. You just have to like sit down and like, because you have to like carry so many floats when you're knitting with 3. So yeah, this was kind of like something I never thought I would knit, and I'm just, again, so glad that I knit this. This is so thick up here, oh my gosh. Like when you give that a squeeze, when you give this a squeeze, this is gonna be so warm. These are some of my favorite sweaters, are the color work sweaters I have that are knit in like really woolly yarn, because they are so warm in the winter. They're warmer than even like a cardigan, I think. So yeah, so hopefully by the next podcast I will have these sleeves done. And this will be blocked, and it will be beautiful, and maybe it'll be cool enough that I'll get to wear it on the next podcast. So yes, this is an almost done work in progress. Clap.
nice segment.
Thank you so much. I really don't have that much.
Alright, video is rolling.
What a sweet George. Let me show my pants are falling down. Problem with high-waisted jeans. So my other work in progress, because I showed you my finished socks, are replacement socks for my sock bag. And this is another self-striping sock yarn. I really like self-striping sock yarn. I don't have a lot of it, but I think it's so neat. And this is just the same sock that I always knit. I don't think I said what the sock pattern was that I knit those other ones in, and those other socks I knit were just a Susan B. Anderson smooth operator socks, which is really the sock pattern I use for everything. It's just very easy, and that's what these are too. So I do about, maybe, I think it's like 1.5 inches of ribbing, if you can see there. I don't really have a set amount of ribbing I do, just until I'm tired of knitting the ribbing. So I guess I got a little more out of it this go around. I was a little more into the ribbing. And I knit my socks on one, is it size? I think they're size 1, but I can't tell you what the millimeter equivalent is. I never got a hang of that. I remember being at a knitting store in Dublin and I needed knitting needles, and just like looking at them, and they were all in millimeters, not the US sizing, and just wondering what the heck I was supposed to buy. Oh, hold on. 2.25 millimeters, and these are Chalgu. They're just the fixed circulars, and they are the lace. I don't really know what that means. I guess it's for if you want to knit lace. They are kind of sharp, and they are metal, but they're not. They're a little bit slippery, but not like fall out of your hand slippery. And the reason I like these needles is because of the cord. The cord doesn't kink up at all. This has a kink in it just because I like pinched it a lot. But the cord is like, I think I've talked about these before, but I just really love them. It's a stainless steel like cord, and then it's coated in nylon, so they just like never kink up, which is amazing. I had these Addie's Sock Rocket needles, which is such an interesting name. But the cord, like, it looked like the cord was in knots, and I would soak it in hot water and like try and like make it straight again, and like I couldn't do it. I hated it so much. I hated knitting socks because of these needles, because everyone told me to knit with these Sock Rocket needles, and they were just terrible. But these are great. If you have that problem, try out a pair of Chalgus, because this cord just doesn't kink up. Back to the sock that the needles are on. This is just a very basic vanilla sock, and the colorway is from Nomadic Knits, and it used to be called Diagon Alley. It is not available anymore. She discontinued some of her Harry Potter colorways because J.K. Rowling was being a jerk. So if you want this colorway, I don't know if you can get it. She might have renamed it as something else. But as far as I know right now, I don't think you can get this color. So, I don't know. I had this in my stash, and I thought that was kind of like Halloweenish, Harry Potter. I really like Halloween. I think I've lamented about this before. I've always been a Halloween person. I was a Halloween kid. I was a Halloween purist. I was like, had a very like strict moral compass about what you could be for Halloween. I was always a classic, like, but it had to be scary, like a witch. I think I went as like the Scream. And then when I was in 2nd grade, I went as Hermione, and my mom made me this velvet cloak. And the only reason that it was made out of velvet was because we had a Joann's coupon. I was walking through Joann's today, and I passed the velvet. And I still remember, like, 10 years ago, I was probably longer than that, we were at Joann's, picking out the fabric for my Halloween costume, and she said, we can buy this velvet, but only if we have a coupon. And after that, I was always just a Harry Potter character for Halloween. So I felt that it was appropriate to cast on this colorway, given that it is spooky season. So hopefully I'll have these finished by Halloween so I can wear them, but I don't know. Socks just aren't like a high priority knitting item for me, so hopefully they'll get finished just because they are, like, I guess, more seasonal. But if they don't, I'm obviously still gonna wear these quite a bit. So let me just show you the stripes once again. I think it reminds me of Diagon Alley, although Jordan said that it looks like one of those Halloween stores that are in strip malls. And I just try not to think about that. But yeah, those are my socks, my replacement socks. And I only have the one done, so like I said, if they get done, they get done. If they don't, they don't. But hopefully I'll have them done.
Yeah, I'm making it into the podcast.
You made it into the podcast.
I made it into the podcast. Nobody knows what the hell you're talking about, but I do.
So my next work in progress, I'm sure you're all thinking, is that sweater that I showed last podcast. And if that's what you're thinking, it's logical, but it's not correct. Because I was really frustrated with that sweater, and you all commented such lovely things. A lot of people said that I should try to knit the ribbing now for the collar to see if that helps. So if you tuned in last podcast, I was knitting this colorwork sweater, and it just felt so big. So what this colorwork sweater is, I think it's called Marshland, and it's by Tin Can Knits. And you pick up the ribbing afterwards. So you do a provisional cast on, and then you pick up the ribbing and you knit the little bit of ribbing for the neck. I don't really know why, because I feel like it would have been very easy to just knit the ribbing now. But that's what the pattern said to do, and it just felt like the sweater was very wide. Like it was a lot wider than other sweaters the neckline was. And I don't know if that was because the ribbing wasn't done. But a lot of people commented and said that it looked fine, and they're probably right. Here's the thing, is that I was at this stage in the colorwork where I had to catch floats, and I hate catching floats because the way I do my colorwork is I like pick up the yarn, then I drop the yarn, then I pick up the other color. I'm not like one of those people that can like wrap it around my finger. So when I have to catch floats, it like takes me a long time, and I felt like the sweater wasn't gonna fit. I was at this stage where I had to catch all these floats, and I wasn't getting like a lot of joy working on it. So I put it aside. I read all of your comments. I'm not going to frog it. But I just needed a break from it. And it's a really, really thick yarn. It's a worsted weight. I don't know why I keep touching my neck, because I keep thinking about that neckline. But the yarn that I'm using to knit that sweater it's worsted, but it's like a really plump worsted, almost an Aran. It's a Romney wool. I think it's by Fancy Tiger. It's their heirloom Romney. And it's just like very woolly, and I know that I probably can't wear that sweater until like the end of November. So the point being is that I have not frogged it. It probably just wasn't the most seasonal thing I could be knitting, and I'm going to revisit it. Probably I'm going to show you the sweater that I cast on instead, and it is just very different, but it makes me really happy. So let me just start off by showing you the color. Okay, so this is not really a color I would typically pick. I'm really like a dusty pink person, but I don't know why. I saw this color and I just had to have it, and it's been sitting in my stash for a while. This color is called Rhubarb. I'm a sucker for a good name, a good color name, and I don't know. this is rhubarb. And I appreciated that. That apt naming of this color. So this yarn is a fingering weight. It is called Linen Quill by Pearl Soho, and I love this yarn so much. So this is, like I said, it's a fingering weight. It's kind of like a 2-ply. Let me hold it up super close, and maybe you can see how it's kind of like that 2-ply twist. And let me hold it up again and direct your attention to like the heathering in it. So it is a wool alpaca linen blend. I think it's like 50% wool, like 10% linen. Maybe I'm making up the alpaca content. No, I don't think I am, because you can kind of see like those longer alpaca hairs. But this yarn is $17 for one skein, and it has 460 yards in it, which is a ton of yarn. Like I had 4 skeins of this, and I'm like, this is the 3rd one, and I'm just gonna touch the 4th one just a little bit, because these skeins are huge, and like $17 for that much, like that's really good. And Pearl Soho, because it's a Pearl Soho branded yarn. I love Pearl Soho. They, okay, number 1, came out with new colors, but number 2, around this time of year, they typically do like, it's either 10 or 20% off of Pearl Soho goods. So if you want some of this yarn, it's already, I think like $17 for that much yarn is very affordable. And second of all, if you can get the 20% off, it makes it even more affordable. So I bought this yarn this time last year, and I just wanted it because of the color, and it just sat in my stash, and I would always look at it because it's the brightest color in my little yarn cubbies. And I had this sweater in mind. I haven't told you what the sweater is yet, but I had this sweater in mind for this yarn when I bought it, and so I finally cast the sweater on. And if you follow me on Instagram, I think I talked about it one morning, but I'm knitting the wool and honey sweater. And you can tell it's been a long time since I've podcasted, because this is like a whole sweater. A fingering weight sweater in garter stitch, not even stockinette. Like, this is not straight this is not reverse stockinette garter stitch. This is like knit around, purl around in fingering weight yarn on a size 4 needle. I don't knit that ever. I never knit that. Like my Birkin sweater, okay, it's one thing because like once you get to the body, it's just flat stockinette. Like it's just very potato chip knitting. You know, you can just sit on the couch and do it. This requires a little more focus. So let me talk about this a little bit. Let me just hold it up to myself, because what a color this is. I really like it. So I think it was the very next day after I podcasted, I cast this on. And I did it very spontaneously because I was just frustrated with that sweater, and I did not gauge swatch. And I'm here to tell you that it worked out great for me. Might not work out great for you. You're chancing it if you do it. The only reason that I think it worked out is because this sweater is supposed to have a ton of positive ease. I think it's supposed to have 10 inches, and I don't want that. So I picked the small size, which I think gave me 3 to 4 inches of positive ease, which is kind of what I wanted. And I knew that this is a slightly heavier fingering weight, like not notice, you wouldn't really like notice it, but if you compared it to like a hand-dyed fingering weight, it is just a teeny bit thicker than that. So what I figured was I was already picking a size that would give me some positive ease, and that because this is a little bit of a heavier fingering weight, that would give me a little bit more. So that's why I didn't gauge swatch, because I knew it was going to be big anyway, although my needle size could have affected that. Anyway, I actually didn't even try the sweater on until yesterday, and it fits great. It's like just the right amount of positive ease. And it's a neat construction because it's a super deep yoke. So if you can see this yoke, where this last little bit of pattern is right here, that is where the yoke ends. So this is like, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking it's probably like a 12-inch yoke, which is normally you do 8 inches. So you get like kind of that drop shoulder, not a true drop shoulder, but when you put it on, what I mean is that the shoulder is connected until about here on my arm, which is pretty deep. So when you actually cast on to knit the sleeves, they are shorter sleeves, not significantly. They're not quite 3/4 length. They're a little bit longer than that. But like you only have to knit 12 inches, and normally for a sleeve you knit 18. So that's kind of nice. So I had wanted to knit this sweater. I said it was a Wool and Honey sweater, right, by Andrea Mowry. I've wanted to knit this sweater for so long since it came out, but I just didn't know if I could knit these elongated stitches. It just looked really hard. And especially because it's on like the garter stitch background, I was just like really worried about it. But I was just so frustrated with that other sweater that I'm like, whatever, let me just cast on something hard to frustrate me even more. And it actually ended up being fine. So to knit this motif, what you're doing is basically to get these long stitches, you're doing wraps. So you're doing like yarn overs. You'll do like 3. So you'll wrap the yarn around the needle like 3 times. And then eventually those stitches get dropped and picked up. And because you wrap the yarn around so many times, they're like elongated stitches. So this really isn't difficult technically. The only thing that is a little bit annoying is that you do have to follow the pattern like to a T. I pretty much just worked on this when I was at work, which might not make sense, but I have a lot of downtime at my job because I'm an EMT. So if people don't need me, I get to sit there and knit. And that's when I knit most of this. So it's just, when you knit it, you do have to be a little more focused. The way I do when I knit things like this where I have to follow it row by row is I just pull it up on the pages in my iPad, or you can do it on your phone too. And I just use the highlight feature and I cross off every single row. And then I just kind of zoom in, so I'm only looking at the one row that I need. So I don't accidentally look at another row. And I just follow the instructions. Like I just look at it row by row. And you do kind of like start to understand like how the stitches work. And you do like, I still would like read the pattern row by row, but I kind of like knew what I was doing. I want to say probably once I got to like this repeat, this third repeat, I kind of like understood it. And it's really not difficult. You just have to pay attention. So I am so excited to have finally knit this sweater because I kept seeing it and like people would knit it and I'm like, that is so me. This like honeycomb pattern, and I just really wanted to knit it, but I didn't think I could. Like it just looked too hard. I never knit in fingering weight yarn, and I thought it wasn't meant to be. So I'm just so glad to have this sweater. If you can see this sleeve is like basically done. I put this stitch marker on there because I just knit this to the length the pattern said, but I wanted it just a little bit longer. So I put the stitch marker in and I said that I needed to knit another inch above it. So I'm just about there. So this sleeve can get cast off. And I can cast the other one on. And this sleeve was, like I said, was super short to knit because the yoke is so deep and you get so much of the sleeve just from the yoke alone. I knit these sleeves on, what is the phrase? Magic loop. I did magic loop. I don't normally do that with sleeves because when you knit sleeves flat stockinette, at least for me, I get a slightly tighter gauge when I do them on magic loop. But it didn't really matter because this is garter stitch. And it's not, like I said, it's not the reverse stockinette garter stitch where it's just the wrong side of the stockinette and you get that garter look. This is like real garter stitch. So it's so stretchy that, you know, knitting it on magic loops didn't affect the tightness of it. Normally I knit my sleeves on the 16-inch circulars because it goes so fast. And I tried to do that with these, but it didn't really matter because you still have to alternate the knit and purl round. So it's not like I was going that much faster knitting them on the 16 inches. So I just knit these on, again, my Chow Goos. And yeah, so this sleeve is almost done. And I'm sure by next podcast I'm going to have both of these sweaters finished. And I'm very excited about that. But all I want to say is that if you want to knit this sweater and you're intimidated by it, don't be, because I think it's been out for like 3 years and I wanted to knit it ever since, and I just didn't think I could do it. But I don't think there are any skills that I learned in between when it came out and now that would have prohibited me from knitting it. So if this is on your bucket list, just cast it on, because it's so cute and it's not hard. So this is normally the section of the podcast where I would talk about my stash acquisitions, but I typically don't have many stash acquisitions. I've tried in recent years to be better about not buying single skeins of yarn that I don't have plans for, and I've been a lot better about that. I know in the previous episodes I have had stash acquisitions, and that was mostly because I was worried that if the world ended because of the pandemic, that I wouldn't have enough yarn, which is irrational. But that is why I had so much stash acquisition in the previous episodes. But I still have like yarn in my stash, and so I thought maybe I would just, in this segment now and in the future, I might just talk about some things that I have in my stash that I plan to knit with. So I just brought one this week, and it is a skein of lovely yarn. This is a skein of Madeline Tosh. Isn't all of my yarn Madeline Tosh? And this colorway is called Hot Apple Cider. And I got this last year during that sale that I talk about all the time. And I bought all the yarn in September, but then because they like oversold everything, I didn't get it until like December. But I'd ordered all of these fall colorways, and so I was really disappointed that I didn't get it until after fall, because I wanted to knit with all these yarns then. So this is one of those autumnal colors that I got, and it's really nice. You can kind of see on the outside there like some darker speckles, but I would love to knit these up for fall. And I think I'm going to cast these on. I might cast them on before I finish my other socks, but I think what I'm going to knit with this specific colorway, because it is a little more subtle, I think instead of doing vanilla socks, I think I'm going to do that pattern, which is called Hermione's Everyday Socks. And it just has like I think it's a free pattern, and it just has like a very subtle like textured panel that goes down the top of it. The only reason I haven't cast these on yet is because I do really want to knit those socks, but I also just kind of knit socks as something that's like super mindless that I can just pick up and knit when I need something in the moment. So knitting a pair of textured socks, I do have to think about it just a little bit more. So this is probably going to be my next cast on. I just need like I said previously, I just need the colorway for the heels and toes. I don't have that yet, so that's kind of the reason why I haven't cast these on as well. But I think like a pale pink would look nice with this, or maybe a purple. They might be too Halloweeny if I do a purple. Maybe the pink. I feel like the pink would be nice, but I don't know. I just like that it's called Hot Apple Cider. And I think these will get cast on before the next podcast. So I just talked about how I don't always have stash acquisitions to show you. So I thought that this week, since I don't really have any other yarn to show, that I would just show you something. I literally just picked this up today. I picked up some embroidery floss. Let me just show you the colors. So embroidery is not something I typically do very often. It's kind of something I do like once or twice a year. And there's this embroidery designer that I followed for so long on Instagram, and she makes lovely, lovely patterns, and the colors are so, they're kind of like a muted rainbow. Like you can see that in here. It's kind of like a rainbow, but like very subtle. And she had just posted the other day that she had a new class up on Creative Bug, which is kind of like Blueprint or Craft. I think it used to be Craftsy. I think they're very similar. I don't know if they're the same because Craftsy has had so many different names. So it could be the same thing. But she posted that she had a new class up, and you get a free month if you sign up. And even if you want to continue the subscription, it's only like $8 a month, and her patterns alone are like $15, which again, 100% worth it. Like she puts, you know, like a lot of thought and a ton of instructions into the pattern, so they're worth the $15. But I also just figured like I could try this one out for free. And she does have several more patterns on Creative Bug, so that way you could like get those too. I'll link that in the description below. And let me put a picture on the screen of what this is going to be. It's kind of just like this lovely little like floral vignette, and the colors, they look, when I'm looking at it like this, it doesn't quite look the way it will on the actual embroidery piece, because these pinks make up a good portion of it, but they're only 3. So like it's going to be like 60% these colors, and then like 40% a mixture of these other colors. So if you're looking at this palette and you're like, what is she making? It will make more sense when you see the picture. So I just got these. These are just the DMC threads from Joann's. I want to say, I think there's 16 colors in here, and she gives you, in the pattern, she gives you like a layout of all the colors. I think there's 16 colors, and I want to say these are like 40 cents a piece at Joann's. So I think it only comes out to be like, I think $7. And then I also got fabric. You can use any fabric, I think, for embroidery, but I think like a linen fabric works better because it's sturdier. I've done embroidery on just like quilting cotton before, and it works fine, but you do get a little bit of pulling on it, like tension from the thread, just because it's not quite as strong of a fabric. So this time I went for the linen. It's just like a very light cream linen, which I think will look nice with all these colors, because I was thinking about doing like a pale pink, but I think because there's pink in here, it'll look better just against like a cream background. So just another thing that I thought I'd mention if you want to do an embroidery project is that Joann's now has good embroidery hoops. So the first time I ever did embroidery was when I graduated college, and it was for my graduation cap. I did, you know how people decorate the back of the graduation cap? I did an embroidery piece, and it was the last line from the last Harry Potter book, and it was the Hogwarts Express going through the mountains. It was super cute, and I still have it, and it took forever. But I quickly discovered that those like 80-cent embroidery hoops that they have at Joann's are terrible, because when you do embroidery, you want the hoop to very uniformly hold tension on your fabric, and those like 50-cent hoops, I just downgraded them in price because they're so terrible. They're just like, they're bamboo hoops, and they are not they're not perfect circles, so they don't hold the tension perfectly. Like, they're warped circles, and so you'll get these patches where like your fabric will be very tight and it's easy to pull the needle through, and then these patches where it's just super loose and it makes it so difficult to work with. I think I found like really nice European hoops that people recommended on Etsy, and then like we ordered some, but they never came, and I just didn't do anything with it because I didn't want to use one of those terrible hoops again. But maybe 2 weeks ago, I just noticed these at Joann's, and these are like really nice hoops. Like, these have a little bit of weight to them, but you can see that they are very like, number one, the wood is a lot thicker and it's stronger. It's a lot stronger than the bamboo. And these screws up top are a lot, they are just much higher quality than like the 50-cent hoops. And I think this wood is, let's see if it tells you what it is. I feel like it's birch. So it's not bamboo. The point is that if you want to do embroidery, try and find one of these hoops, because it's going to make it so much easier. And these look a lot like a ton. They just look so much better than the bamboo hoops. So let me just show you what the tag says. It says top notch, but like I said, I got these at Joann's, and I want to say this is a 6-inch hoop. I want to say it was $5, but they always have 50% off coupons online. So like $2.50, you know, it's a little more than the other hoops. But if you want to do this, they finally have good hoops at the craft store. So I will put the link for that pattern. I'll put the Etsy link if you just want to buy the pattern, but I'll also put the link to the Creative Bug class, because you can try it for free if you've always wanted to try embroidery. And she does a step-by-step on Creative Bug of all the different stitches that you need to learn to be able to do this little sampler. So hopefully I'll have this started for the next podcast, but it's just kind of something that, you know, I'm not like trying to finish it, because it's just like a decoration. So hopefully I'll have something to show next podcast. So we've come to the end of another podcast number 5. If you have subscribed already, thank you so much. And if you haven't subscribed, give me a subscribe, or hit the like button, or do any combination of those. Leave me a comment below if you liked today's podcast. There won't be a giveaway this week. We did a giveaway last week, so I don't think we'll do one this week. I should have another podcast out before the knit along is over. So I know I've kind of been doing them like once a month. I'm trying to be better about doing them like once every 2 weeks, but it's hard because I want to have knitting and things to show you. But maybe they'll just be shorter podcasts, and then you'll get 2 instead of 1. So I will link everything I talked about below. Sometimes I don't do that, but I'll do it this time. So I'm going to link everything that I talked about today below. I will put a link to our Ravelry page for the knit along. Again, the knit along is October 1st and it ends on November 1st. There will be a prize. It's probably going to be a project bag and something else. And I'll probably announce that on the next podcast in 2 weeks. I will make Ravelry pages for my projects. So if you have any questions about that, you should be able to find that on my Ravelry pages. The shop update again is October 3rd at 5 p.m. Eastern time. I'll put a little note in the comments below just with all these dates and important events. So I know there's no prompt for the comments this week, but just leave me a comment below and let me know that you watched the podcast, because I love reading your comments. I love when you give me hints when I'm having difficulty with my knitting. I love when people weigh in and let me know what worked for them. I guess I didn't really have any problems this week, but I really enjoy reading all of your comments. It's so nice to have a little knitting community. So again, any links you need will be below. Any dates you need will be below. And stop by our Ravelry page and join in on the knit along. Alright, see ya in 2 weeks.